doing when we saw the signs that law and order was going to be breached. And let me conclude on this note. We always know from the historical antecedents that things are not good in terms of the relationships and the chieftaincy issues between Bonos and Ashantis. But we have made it a taboo subject. We even refuse to acknowledge it, and we don't want to talk about it.
Okay, so in terms of...
When that trend becomes serious and violence begins to erupt, we then begin to ask, where is the police? And this is where I find the gap. And it's very, very important that we address this comprehensively. And to do that, we go beyond simplifying it and understanding it from this deeper level. And that is why I would have preferred that the National Security Advisor will look at it from this perspective. But don't also forget that his background is military. So he sees security to be the overwhelming common denominator of how you have peace. But I'm coming from a background of peace building, in which for me, it is how you establish the capacity to have peace and stability that improves your security environment. So we come from two different schools of thought, and no wonder, therefore, that we will not agree on how we appreciate this complexity.
Okay, Mr. Bombande, let's look at constitutionally. What can be done to eliminate the sort of vast difference between chieftaincy and democratic or constitutional rule?
Allow chieftaincy to continue to evolve within the merits of its own traditional boundaries, but supported with the human resource capacity and the institutional capacity to respond to and deal effectively with their own internal conflicts. For example, who can become chief? Who succeeds when a sitting chief passes on? And how is all that defined in state legislature and gazetted in a manner that prevents confusion? And once a chief is recognized by the traditional mechanisms that gave it that gazette, that gave it that recognition, everybody must respect that procedure, so that we don't have a political party chairman going to meet a chief and saying that we recognize you. It is the other side that does not recognize you. That is the recipe for disaster, for polarization, and for confusion. And the more we allow this, and we allow it to happen without any serious thought, the more we are sowing the seeds of conflicts in the future. And then at the level of the modern state, as I've suggested already, our advocacy and my passion is that Ghana must develop the institutions backed by the state that is very good at conflict resolution. It is for that reason we've worked in what we call the development of the peace architecture, in which we went hard with the United Nations system, in what we call the infrastructure for peace. That then led to the setting up of the National Peace Council. And then we are supposed to have regional peace councils that have not functioned. It is supposed to roll out to the district level. But as we speak, even the National Peace Council has no legal recognition. There's no legal instrument to back it. And so it is out of the goodwill that Ghanaians have for prominent people like Cardinal Texan that allowed it to operate. But it does not have a legal standing. Why can't Ghana have that institution like we have with the Media Commission or other specialized commissions, whose training and expertise is how we are bringing mediation, conciliation, and dialogue for people to talk about their problems, find harmony and equitable and mutual solutions to their problems, so that these do not generate into violence and into the abuse of human rights, and for that matter, criminality.
In terms of chieftains, you don't think that the Ministry of Chieftains is enough for what you're talking about?
Could you repeat that?
In terms of chieftains, you're talking of some unit or a body to liaise between government and some of these institutions. You don't think that the Ministry of Chieftaincy is enough for this particular task in respect of liaising between government and chiefs?
My good friend, do not forget that the moment you talk about the Minister for Chieftaincy, you are talking about a minister who is in office by virtue of the fact that his political party won power. And that the perception is that government in power is formulating policy around the relationship and governance between that government and how it relates to chieftaincy. And so the Ministry of Chieftaincy is by its own character and nature politically partisan. Now, in the conflicts around chieftaincy, whether it's in Dagon or you name it, one of the underlying complexities, which is often not talked about, is that one of the parties in the conflict, though a chief, and for that matter, a traditional leader, will also have an affiliation in one way or the other with a different political party. To that extent, therefore, they do not relate with the Minister for Chieftaincy as an impartial institution. They see it as government. Okay. And for that matter, if that government is not the party they belong to, at the perception level, they already have a problem. And so I'm talking about the institution that is not, in my view, part of the machinery of government. The institution that by itself has the integrity because of its capacity to be perceived by the general public as impartial.
Okay, Mr. Bombande.
The expertise it has.
Hello, Mr. Bombande.
Yes.
Yeah, finally, for the sake of time, in respect of the Ashanti and Bono you were talking about, as someone with a knowledge in peace building, what would you advise as the way forward?
First of all, in the immediate, one would expect that the issues that have, so to speak, brought about anxiety are contained within the context of restraint, in which the subtle mediation initiated by government will yield dividends to the extent that people will pull back from any further comment that would degenerate into something probably worse. But immediately after that, we must have an acknowledgement that for a very long time, when it comes to chieftaincy, there is a divide in Bono and in Ashanti about which paramountcy pays allegiance and homage to who. And we must be able to deal with this not necessarily on the basis of the Gazette and what the law said, but on the basis of how we are re-establishing the relationships that govern and define these very important communities. And the more we are then able to do that, the more we are talking about the sustainability of a peace that is genuine and lasting, so that we can then have a relationship between the Bono Traditional Council and the Santiman Traditional Council that goes beyond what is in the law, but understands a common people, a common aspiration, and the capacity at all times to be able to dialogue and talk about issues of conflict that tend to divide. So that what we then begin to see more and more is the sense of purpose of unity brought about by dialogue, which, by the way, is very traditional for all the Akan communities.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel-Bombande, Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace, speaking to us from Brussels. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this is still your Community Watch on Focus 94.3. It is 15 minutes to 8 right here on the 17th of March 2010.
Welcome to
Focus
FM.
A lot of my friends listen to it at work.
You want it tomorrow? We made it today.
I just don't grow tired of listening to it.
To
Focus. I love